Hello. Today I wanted to talk about whether or not to use a notebook or like a sketchbook is what a lot of people will say. So I have a page here and I made a little comic. Basically it's a cake that only got half baked. and I know it's weird explaining a joke, but the point I'm trying to say here is that I feel like a lot of people have ideas and maybe they want to make it into something greater, but in the moment they have a small idea. And I think it's always a good idea to get that onto a page as soon as possible. And I wanted to say that it appears that many people tend to go for a sketchbook. And basically a sketchbook is usually bound, which there's definitely convenience to that. I'm definitely not going to disagree with that. But I wanted to say that like I use just 9x12 Strathmore paper. It's usually like this, but you could make it like landscape. And the idea behind, well, you could say half-baked is, half-baked ideas. I got that idea from my grandfather for a regular notebook, and he was like, hey, take this notebook, and he put a sticker on it that said half-baked ideas. And like I used it for a good deal of time. I eventually moved to digital instead, but then I've realized that with drawing, I don't like to hold everything in text. Like I like to actually try to attempt to draw it. That's kind of not weird, but just like I think it's actually like it could be I think cathartic could be the right word, or maybe even therapeutic, just to get your ideas out on paper. And like the thing is, it could sometimes give you, or like even just get you time to maybe experiment or try something from a new perspective that you may not have otherwise have done. And the reason why I recommend paper instead of a sketchbook or notebook, I mean, I don't know, to each is your own, but like with this, I end up putting it into pretty much this folder thing. I know that kind of sounds weird. I showed it before, but it's just basically for 9x12 paper. And I know that sounds like bizarre, but the big benefit being that if I ever want to look at my ideas again or refer to them, a lot of sketchbooks kind of make it difficult to hold open unless you have some type of book hold opener, which ironically I do, but I still opt in for an easier way to refer to some of my ideas or just read through them to laugh at them. I know that sounds weird, but another thing that I wanted to mention is sizing. So I have a Zona 37434. I can't remember where I got this from, but maybe Amazon. It was either that or like, I forget what it's for, but I like this thing. It is a small L square. It is great for making these little windows, in which that's usually what I try to fit my perspective into if I'm ever trying to like draw something. For a while, I was kind of just using the page wherever I wanted to. And I think there is a lot of benefits to that. I mean, I'm going to say I try to fill up the entire page with like any bug-related ideas I have. And I think it's a good idea to do that because, even though I may not have the exact rendering skills that I want to have yet, and I'm working on it every day, there was an old rule that talked about the 80-20 rule, in which you do 80% practice, 20% for fun. And I will say it's kind of funny that I've had days in which I would just go AWOL with putting stuff down on a page, like different comics, ideas, stuff like that, perspectives, just trying new things, even though they may not always turn out the way I wanted it to. Having fun with it, which, I guess you could say I would lose myself some days, but like I would have to put myself in perspective, that if I would do that, I was probably improving in some way, but I wasn't doing kind of like the boring practice that often ends up helping in the end. And I think it's a good idea that I'm able to transition myself to that mindset it took me a long time to get to that point. And I wanted to say that, like, when I first started drawing, I had ideas for stuff that I wanted to make, but I think a lot of it evolved over time. I think sometimes I would see myself drawing stuff and like, you know what, that's not really what I want to make. That's not what I envisioned. To the point, like, I remember when I first started out, I really struggled with insects. I feel like it's hard for me to say it. I guess you could say that, like, I don't know, I kind of found it boring, some aspects of it boring. I don't know why. Perhaps that's it wasn't that, it was more not being able to like draw anything. And I think that's kind of like the frustration, because they say, oh, well, hey, you need to draw for fun, yet you can't draw at all. And it's like, I feel like even when you hear that, like, you pretty much just do nothing but practice, because you still can't render. And even with that, I will say, sometimes I still will use like a T-square. I've realized that there is a lot of stuff that I can freehand, but sometimes I will opt in to use something like this, but it won't work every time. But the only reason why I say that is because I feel like with a lot of lines, just because you can freehand them, it eats up a lot of your mind and your thinking power, and you have to take breaks. And it's kind of funny because for a while I used a 25-minute rule, or like the Pomodoro technique to doing that, and eventually I just lost myself. And it seems like nowadays it's the fact that I either get back pain or my body starts to hurt from sitting too long. And I find that kind of funny, because I guess you could say it's kind of like this threshold that I feel like I've crossed. Not to say I don't have more to learn, but just I remember back when I started a job dealing with computer stuff, I want to say my first day I left in excruciating pain, back pain, and it's weird to say butt pain from sitting all day, but that's what it was. I didn't have a standing desk at that time. That was pre-pandemic. But yeah, trying to like just get ideas out of your head, whether they're good or bad. I think just getting them out of your head is one of those things that will greatly benefit you. I realize that I don't year and date everything I make. I don't know if it's a good idea for me to do that. I probably should start doing that more. I don't know why I don't. I find it kind of weird. But I will say the other thing about sketchbooks is that I feel like with a lot of them, the commitment, like, you can't really throw away a page. Like, you can rip it out, but a lot of those sketchbooks are not designed for you to tear out a page because of the way they're bound. Could be wrong on that, not every sketchbook, but just dealing with like loose paper, I feel like it could be a lot easier, just because you can, decide to keep the paper or not. But yeah, that's what I wanted to share. I think it's good to get your ideas out of your head as soon as possible. And I guess you could always come back to iterate them again if you want to. I mean, I've read certain methods that people use, things like, I think they call it like storyboarding, for trying to get some of your ideas out, and maybe even iterating your ideas, doing a bunch of those. And like, heck, sometimes if I have an idea, I just do one. But you can always come back to it later, so it's not so much of a hard commitment. And I think like having like this type of half-baked idea thing isn't as worrisome, because I feel like if you have like a sketchbook, there's sometimes you may make stuff that you never really have any, like, you're never going to want to look at it again. And I feel like because you don't want to look at it again, it's kind of like a waste of time if you have to go through it. It's like if you're trying to go through all of your notebook to find a bunch of irrelevant ideas, basically consolidating relevant things in an easier way. That's what I would say the benefit of like the loose paper is. Just to say it one more time, it's like Strathmore Series 300. I think it's 9x12, acid-free, smooth. But yeah, that's what I wanted to share. I hope this helps. Yeah, I don't know. I guess you could say a sketchbook does have a convenience factor, in which you could just throw it into your backpack rather than having to have a bunch of loose paper, and then you kind of have to have somewhere to store it if you tear it out of the paper holder thing. But yeah, that's all I wanted to share. Get your ideas down. Thanks for listening. Bye.